Now we're at lesson 9, we're going to add a really crucial piece of detail to your drawings, and that's going to be annotations. Now annotations are great for two reasons. The first is that they're really essential to show a level of detail such as dimensions, room tags, area tags, floor finishes, etc. And these are really crucial to communicate to anyone with any level of understanding of architecture or your project in general, so they can pick up the drawings, pick up the design, and be able to understand them with the level of annotation and information shown in the drawings. The second reason why annotations are really powerful is that they're a great graphic touch, and they add a layering and a professionalism to your drawings. In this lesson, I will walk you through the process of adding annotations within Rayon. Some of these annotations will be not necessarily required at this level of detail, but they will also show you the vast range and the variety of annotations that you can add using the Rayon tools. So annotations, let's add them. If you're familiar with my drawing style as an architectural designer, you will know that I like my black and white drawings with a punch of colour, and normally that punch of colour is red. So in this annotations lesson, I'm going to show you how you can implement all your annotations with a punch of red. And the reason why I add a colour is because not only does it help just make your drawings pop, because you're given something that enhances the drawing and makes your drawings a bit more appealing and engaging, but also differentiates the two levels of information. You have the drawing itself, which is in black and white, and then you have the annotations, which is in a separate colour, so you can kind of differentiate the information between the two. And now this will be a fine balancing act of not overwhelming your drawings with too many annotations, not having too much colour, etc. So there's a fine balance. Now when we head over to this left hand side here, you can already see that I have a key and specifications that I want to start applying to the drawings. So I have room names and tags, I have floor finishes, we've got window and door specifications, we've got floor finish levels, section lines and grid lines. Now grid lines are a really great addition to help make sure that your drawings are properly positioned correctly and coordinated correctly on site, to make sure that when you layer ground floor, first floor, roof plan all over the top, they're easily read between them. Now the first item that I'm going to show you is going to be dimensions. And dimensions is a really great addition to drawings just to help someone get an indication of scale. Now dimensions are really easy to add in Rayon, and the first thing that we're going to do before we add the dimensions is head over to the left hand side and once again create a new layer for the dimensions. Now this is really important because when you are adding your dimensions, you want to make sure that they're on the top layer, because you want them to be the top information on your drawings. So when you create a new layer for your dimensions, make sure you drag it to the top so that the dimensions are going to sit on top of your drawings. So now that we have the dimensions layer created, I'm going to head down to the tab at the bottom here. Same as usual, where we have the polylines, we have the wall tools, etc. We also have annotation tools. So the first one is going to be dimensions, and as you can see, when you select dimensions, you can choose how you want to have your dimensions aligned. So for example, I'm going to have everything of my dimensions parallel. You could have them at an angle, you could be rotated, and you can also either do a single dimension or chained, so multiple dimensions at once, which is a really great way of populating your drawings very quickly. Now before we start drawing any dimensions, I'm going to head over to the right hand side here, and you can see that I have the styles tool, which I'm going to start edit. So I'm going to make sure that all my annotations are going to be red, so that is correct. I'm however going to drop the opacity slightly, or more, quite significantly actually, because I don't want the dimensions to be too prominent on the drawings. I don't want them to overwhelm the drawings, so I'm going to have them as a low opacity so they kind of sit in the background. Now when we come to the next lesson where we go into graphic styling, then we can really start playing with the layers and how they look graphically. But for now I'm going to have them as quite a thin opacity, quite a low opacity on the drawings. So the text is going to be roboto. You can then change the text size. I think 0.15 is okay. You can change the line weight, you can change the dash of course, and you can change the arrowhead. So there's lots of different options. This is probably a preferable dimension for most, but I'm going to use this arrowhead like so. Now the way dimensions work is all you have to do is select one component, select the other end of your component, and then drag it up and you have your dimension. And then you could do a chained item. So if we go to dimensions, we could do a chained item where we can select multiple. Keep selecting our items. We can see that we can then do multiple at the same time, and you can keep going so they chain as one. And just before I start populating the drawings with all of the dimensions, you can also change the canvas units and suffix, etc. So if you head over to the right hand side here, you can change the units from meters to millimeters if you'd wanted to, or inches. I'm going to stick with meters for now. You can then click the three dots. You can then change the precision, i.e. the decimal place. You can change the suffix, so you can remove the meters, and then you can also change the square area, etc. And as you can see, I've populated my drawings with dimensions. I haven't gone too over the top, but I've kind of highlighted the main components, the width of openings, some of the wall components, where we have doors and windows, for example. Likewise with the upper floor, and then if we head to the roof, and in section and elevation, I've added just some widths, which I think are really nice addition, and you could also do heights if you wanted to. Now the next item is going to be grid lines, and I think grid lines, like I've mentioned, are really crucial to help someone have a reference, a kind of reference point when looking at your drawings between the levels, to make sure that they can measure off those grid lines and position their drawings correctly. So the way that I'm going to do my grids is I'm going to come over to this left hand side here. I'm going to select my grid item that I have saved, and also note that you will have access to all of these tags from this lesson, so you are very welcome to use any of these tags, and of course all of the tags available in the block library. You've got pretty much every tag you can think of that you can drop into your drawings. But in this instance, I'm going to drag my grid line over to the top, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to center it along this top line here. And now for the grid, I want it to be fairly logical. Of course, we want a horizontal grid and we want a vertical grid. And now because my drawing is at kind of slight angles, it makes it a little bit more tricky, but the logic is that we'll probably have one grid along the top, because that's the kind of main reference point to the page. We then have a second grid through here, which I will kind of just make a note of as we go through. And we want to make sure they're always centered to the walls. So you have 1, 2, and then potentially a third grid here, and then a fourth grid, and maybe a fifth one here. And then vertically, we could potentially have A, B, C, maybe this one here could be a grid as well, D, and then E at the end here. So there we have a bit of logic to the drawing, and we could copy them up to the upper levels. And the way that I'm going to edit them is I'm going to select the line. I'm going to change it to a dashed stroke. So we're going to do a dash stroke, and we'll change that to maybe do 5. Of course, we'll change that to red, and then we'll use this header, copy it down, and then we can change this to 2. And as you can see, we've now got a logic that you can refer to when you come to the upper floors. You can see that we've got 1, grid B and C aligned. So when you're referring to certain components, you could say grid C1, and it's also a nice graphic addition to the drawing. I like having a number or a letter addition with the circle head. I think it looks nice and it gives the drawing a bit of order. Now the next annotation is going to be levels. So we're going to do floor finish levels, so FFLs. So this floor plan is fairly flat. We obviously have a patio area out the back, and we have this driveway that slopes in from this upper level here. And then on the upper floors, we will have in section, we can show the different heights to also get an indication of floor to ceiling heights and how tall some of the volumes are on the drawings. So to start annotating these drawings with FFL levels, I'm going to head over to my left hand side. I have this block item, which is a spot elevation item, which we can copy over with the text. So I'm just going to do copy and drop that over here and do this as paste. And now we can scale this down a bit because we don't want it too prominent in the drawing. And we're going to indicate that this is actually plus 0.15. So we're going to suggest that maybe we have a floor, a kind of finished floor of a 15mm build up, which would indicate then that we have an outdoor area like so. Copy and paste this over, and maybe this outside is going to be 0, 0. And I'm going to copy this across the drawing. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. Maybe indicate that this outdoor patio area is level 0, 2. So we've got ever so slight step down from the inside. We could indicate that the garage is 0, 0. We can maybe indicate that this level up here is potentially, we could say 1.2, so it's got a 1.2 meter fall as you drive in. And on the upper floor here, we can add a level in, and if we head down to the section, we can check that height. So we're going to use the dimension tool. We can measure up to that point. So we have a 3.3 meter. 3.3. Likewise, in section and elevation, we can do the same tool, but kind of add grid lines and level lines instead. So rather than showing a kind of spot elevation point on plan, we can now show it in elevation. Now what we're going to do is a very similar thing to what we did with the grids. We're going to draw a line to indicate this level. I'm going to copy the elevation point, and instead of having it in this configuration, we're going to have an elevation, a level marker here, a level marker there, and then we're going to change this to a 5 dashed red again. And we can do that throughout. So we have our base level, so our datum level, which is going to be 0. And then we have 3.3 meters. We have a chimney for the fireplace at 4.33. And we have a pitched roof at 7.7 meters. So we've got some nice floor to ceiling heights in these upper floors. Likewise, in section, I also have a tag that you guys can drop in, which will show a floor finish level, so spot elevation in section. Now the next item is going to be room tags. So there's two ways of doing this. You can either tag the zone that you've applied to a particular room. So for example, if you were to drop a zone into this room here, you can see that the tag is applied to that zone automatically. And we can come over to the right hand side, make sure the zone is selected. We could type in office, for example. Or another way of doing it is if you already have a zone applied, you can come down to the bottom here, you can select the tag annotation. You could then select the zone, which will create a tag. So we could say that is the living kitchen, and we can click yes, and then we can scale that down to 0.1, for example, which is very small. And then you can come down, you can select edit tag, you can select this add variable tool, and you could add a area onto that tag. You could add a length onto that tag, and this way you can build your tag from the ground up by tagging a zone, and it will give you the variables based on that zone. Now in this instance, I want to indicate obviously the division of these spaces. I want to indicate that there's a living space, a dining space, etc. So a useful tool if you wanted to actually break down these spaces is to use the zone divider. So for example, you could then potentially divide this space by indicating that that is the living zone, like so, and we're just going to extend that up. And then when you drop a zone into that area, you can then get an accurate calculation of the square meters, etc. So that is one way of doing it. But instead I'm simply going to do it with some text. So I'm going to head down to the bottom, I'm going to select text, and I'm going to call this entrance lobby. And I'm going to scale this down once again, nice and small, but still a little bit prominent. We're going to change it to colon because I like the kind of bold text. It makes the drawings pop a bit more. I'm going to change that to red. And then I'm also going to have a little tag. So we're going to come over here to our tags. I'm going to select the entrance hall tag, copy it over, paste it into place. That is far too big, so we're going to scale that down like so. And there we have our entrance lobby or entrance hall. And we have something like this where we have the spaces identified using the text tool. Come to the upper floor, we have bedroom 3, bedroom 2, family WC, reading nook, so we've got a nice little reading zone there now. Master bedroom, and that's just a nice and easy way to be able to control the annotations that you add to your rooms. And now we're going to get into some of the items that aren't probably necessarily required for a drawing at this detail, but I'm going to show you them anyway to give you an idea of the variety of annotations you can add. So the next one is going to be adding floor finishes, so indicating a floor finish. Now I already have over this left hand side the key with all the specifications of the floor finishes that have been applied. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy over these tags. I'm going to drop them into the zones, and I'm going to remove some of the specifications because we probably don't need those. We'll make that smaller. And now that we're happy with the size of the text, we can then select the text and we can create a style for that text that we can implement throughout the drawing. And then to finish up this tag, I'm going to draw a rectangle around it. And the square rectangle is a little harsh, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the fillet tool. So we're going to select the item, going to head down to the bottom, we're going to go to fillet, or fillet, however you want to say it. Select fillet, and what you'll have is you'll have two options. You'll either do a single or all. What we're going to do in order to create a curve throughout the edge of the rectangle, we're going to select all, and as you can see here, as you drag in, you can type the radius in, but in this instance we're just going to drag it in slightly like so. We're going to head to the right hand side again, we're going to make that a solid white and drop the opacity slightly, and then once again we're going to save that style as floor finish rectangle and copy that throughout. We have a carpet floor cover for the office, we have carpet on the upper level, so it's all carpet on the upper floor. An extra addition, an extra level of information that is always useful to add to a drawing. And then just adding windows and door tags. Once again, I have all the specifications lined out. I'm not going to bore you through the process of me adding all of these to all of the doors, but for example, we can copy this item over the front door and we'll just paste it like so, and we'll place it kind of centrally to the door. And the final annotation tool that I want to show you is going to be leaders and arrows. So these are really great to add notes to your drawings and add some kind of commentary, any kind of features or particular components that you think are slightly ambiguous and that you need to kind of explain a little bit in your drawings. You can head down to the bottom here. We could do a leader. If you select one end, for example, if we want to highlight this kind of dual fireplace, you select one component, which gives you the first point. So this is the arrowhead of your annotation. You select the next, and then you get the leader where you can type. Let's call this a dual fireplace. And you can then change the color of that once again to red. We can maybe make this a subtle annotation because we don't want it too heavy. You can change the arrowhead. And once again, this is just good to indicate some features that you want to add a bit more detail to and just add a note to in your drawings. So custom made bookshelf, for example. In floor plan, we also can add some kind of guttering notes. We could add kitchen island, the dual-sided fireplace, and now we have a good level of annotation to the drawing. Once again, it's not about overwhelming the drawing with too much annotation. You have to be careful in not overwhelming the drawings and distracting the drawings. Once again, as I mentioned earlier in the course, by not adding too many hatches, you don't want to add too many annotations.